Well, hello guys, so welcome back. So I thought we'd take a minute today just to go through one of the rigs that I've talked about a lot over the last few sessions. I've had a lot of questions about it from you guys on social media. So this is the rig I talked about quite a lot previously. It's the Slip D multi-rig. So this is a really versatile rig. It's one of the rigs that I tend to use most of all throughout all of my fishing. This is actually one that, you know, I cut off my rig at the end of a session. Well, unclipped off my rig because they're just quick change. And yeah, this one is still absolutely razor sharp. I'd still absolutely happily cast this one back out, no problem at all. It's really good because you're not wasting loads of components. You can reuse things. If you're confident in the hooks, you can put them back out as they are. If not, you can just switch out the hook, slip off the end of the rig, put a new one on, and that's it, you're good to go. You don't have to worry about tying up a whole new rig. So I thought we'd go in a little bit more in depth on how to tie this one, since I've had quite a lot of questions. I talked about this rig in my top 5 carp fishing rigs for, I believe it was for winter or for spring. So that's available on there as well if you want to have a look. What I'll do is I'm going to open my box up. I haven't actually opened this box since my last session, so I don't know the state of it, but we're going to have a bit of a rummage through, find the components, and I'll show you guys how I like to tie this rig up. So here we go. As promised, this is a closer look. So we have our hook pattern of choice, anti-tangle sleeve. We have, just here we have our micro ring swivel with the ring and then the small part of the swivel, and then we have our tiny little kicker just here, and then we have a length of braid. So this is the tank braid, and this one here is a very dark camo. You probably can't see it in this light, but in daylight you can see it's just sort of flecked enough to have some sort of camouflage properties. Basically, let's pop everything down so we're not dropping anything. We just stick it there. Take our braid. In one end of the braid, we're going to tie a figure of 8 loop knot. So pull up about 2 inches of the braid into a loop, double it over itself. That loop we're going to twist against itself, just like that, and then put the tag end through both loops. That's going to create like a little figure of 8. That's not the neatest one, but let's just pop that down there. As you can see there, pops it down just like that. Give it a bit of a pull. I like to really give it some pulls like that just to sort of bed it down nice and neat. Because it's braid, I'm not so worried about burning the material. There we go. Snip off our tag end. Discard that to the side. Obviously, if you're tying rigs on the lake, make sure that you take home all of your loose ends and all of the bits of mono and braid that you cut off. There we go, we have a loop. Now what we need to do is put our kicker. The kicker is going to be done with a bait needle. This is a gated one. Just there you can see it's gated. And what I'm going to do is just thread through the wide end, past the gate, put the gate on the loop, close the gate, put everything down, just like that. It does work a little bit better if you can manage to tend to use a puller tool for this one, just to pull the kicker just over the knot, just to get enough space when you pull up that hook. There we go, doesn't damage it at all. Now we're going to use our hook and we're going to push straight through the hook. Let's turn it over. So we're going to go through like that. We're going to push it through this way. It's going to go through from the point to the back, just like that. Take our micro ring swivel and we're going to take it from the, there we go, so take our micro ring swivel, we're going to put the ring part of the swivel over the loop, push that loop over the hook. It's a little bit fiddly, so you just got to take your time with it, push it over like that, keep it over, and that's it. And that essentially is your hook tied on. As you can see there, everything's on that loop. And then what we need to do is pull that kicker back over the eye of the hook. And this one is when you basically adjust to see the distance between the eye of the hook and the distance between there and where your bait is going to sit, just like that. And I don't like it super long on the Slip D section. There we go. So it's basically in level with where the barb is on the hook, the opposite side. See it like that? Very aggressive, and you can basically see there that when you use a hook bait, it's going to sit to the side. Try and get that in focus. There we go. Sit to the side just like that. Loads of movement in the hook end here, and then you've got a tiny little gap between the kicker and the knot. The knot there you can cover with putty if you want. I like to have the putty a little bit further down. Sometimes I have it on the knot if I need it to pin in place. And that gives you a little hinge section, and then we have the rest of the line here loose. What we're going to do is take the anti-tangle sleeve. This is a dark one because we use a dark rig material. It's really good for like silt and any choddy lakes, anything like that. Most of the lakes I tend to fish are kind of choddy and silty. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the bait needle again and we're going to push it through this way and then pull everything back down. What I like to do is just wet the inside of the anti-tangle sleeve just to make everything pull down nice and neat. So I'll do that now. There you go, inside there, a little bit of saliva. Pull the gate back, push everything through. See the saliva coming through now. Close that gate a little bit. See it's all on the needle there. Now we're going to take the tag end, just double it over a little bit, put it up in the gate, close the gate, and then just ease everything back down and pull it back over. There we go. And that threads the anti-tangle sleeve down onto our line. Just enables it to get onto that line a little bit easier. And then all we need to do is the same this end, and we're going to basically create that figure of 8 loop knot this end of the line. Gauge how long you want your rig. I tend to have mine 6 to 7 inches long, depending on the weed on the lake or chod and how clear the water is. Double it over, figure of 8 loop knot again, snip off that tag end, and that is it. That is our rig tied. Put everything down. There we go. Ready to be quick changed over. Everything there is perfect. As you can see, the knot is just inside, so that's going to hold enough tension. See, I push enough there and it came right through. There we go. So that's the knot there. Anti-tangle sleeve onto a little loop, and that little loop is what we attach to our rig. And that is it. Super easy there. Amazing little rig. And that is what does all the damage for me. So yeah, if I use pop-ups, then I do tend to use a bit of cork, drill them out, put the plug in so it's ultra buoyant and the buoyancy doesn't change over time. And then I can use the putty to sort of counterweight that or trim them down so they sit exactly the right height that I want. But 9 times out of 10 with these pop-ups, because they're so heavily glugged, a bit of cork in there just puts them back to the right buoyancy, which is perfect. A lot of people think that they're glugging up their hook baits and it's amazing, but they don't bother trying them in the edge, and then they don't realise that their hook bait doesn't actually perform the way that they're supposed to. So yeah, if you are glugging hook baits, definitely try them in the edge before you use them, because you might find that you're using a rig that's designed for a buoyant hook bait, and when your hook bait isn't buoyant in the water, it's just sitting like a bottom bait, your rig isn't working as effectively as it should be working because the mechanics is wrong for that style of rig. But yeah, anyway, let's take this pop up, take our bait floss that we cut off earlier. Quite a big bit of bait floss I've cut off there for some reason, not sure why. Anyway, let's take that through, put that through the little swivel on the micro ring swivel, thread everything down, pull that through the hook bait, and then when I'm pulling the hook bait onto the micro ring swivel, I pull it just so the barrel is only just inside the hook bait, just like that. So you've got all of that extra swivel on there, but it's quite firm and you've got enough separation still that it's like that. If you pull it all the way onto the barrel, there's not enough separation between the hook and it doesn't really perform in the right way, or at least in the way that I like it. Let's snip off that section here. So with these, with the longer tail ends like this, like I say, if I'm fishing for a long time, I do tend to put in a bait stop, tie a couple of overhand knots in the floss, and then blob it down on top of the bait floss. That way, if you're casting far, it's not going to pull back through that blobbed knot, or over time when the pop-up tends to swell a little bit, and it's not going to pull right through and go into the bait because it's enough stopping it there, so it's pretty good. But just for this demonstration, I'll just snip it off, use your lighter, blob it down, there we go. And also for these ones, if you use a floss that's, let's say, not very good quality or too thin, when you blob it down, it does tend to leave quite a black spot on top of the hook bait. And if I'm using a power hook bait like this, I want to make sure that it's invisible as possible. So I'll cut down quite short on the floss, blob it down, and then when you touch it instantly, it goes like a clear colour instead of like a burned black colour. I don't know if it makes a massive difference, but it makes me feel more comfortable when I'm fishing like that. And I think confidence is the main thing, about any sort of fishing really, but especially with carp fishing when you're putting the baits up for a very long time and you know that the rig end is doing all the work for you. It's not like sea fishing where you're striking, or lure fishing where you're striking bites and stuff like that. The rig is the one that's actually striking for you. So I want to make sure that everything is best tailored for that style of fishing. But yeah, that's that rig there, and I use that pretty much everywhere I fish. I've used it in sort of heavy seal, really weedy lakes, clear spots, everything. So I use it for predominantly wafter hook baits, so they'll sit just on the side like that, or maybe slightly cocked, so they're just sitting like this on the deck, so the hook point itself is off the deck and the hook bait is just up like that. It's like a claw. That works really well. and sometimes they'll lay just sort of on their side. I'm not sure how much of that you can see, but they'll sit sort of sideways on like that. That's how you want them presented, really, with a wafter hook bait. Because of the mechanics of this rig, its centre of gravity kind of pulls it, so pop up or the buoyant hook bait is making the eye of the hook light, so the point of the hook is heavy, therefore all that weight is going to be exerted into the fish's mouth in the point of the hook, as opposed to if you had a buoyant hook bait on the point end, this end here, you're kind of lifting the pressure out of the fish's mouth as opposed to going in. So I tend to put bottom baits further around the shank, like on a hair or etc. That'll be further around the shank, so when it falls, the weight of it's pulling into the fish's mouth, and then the buoyant ones at the back end. That's how you want it, sort of centre weighted. But yeah, these work really, really well wherever you go. I fish them now inside solid bags as well, just obviously much shorter, about half this length. I tend to fish them around sort of 3.5 to 4 inches length in a solid bag. Exactly the same braid as well. This one works absolutely brilliant, and I've never had this tangle actually. I used to fish years ago with soft coated braids or uncoated braid and still find that they sit really funny or get really tangled in the cast, etc. But I've never had this one tangle so far. Maybe it's because of, you know, when you get better at casting and feathering a line and stuff, you do tend to sort of eliminate those problems anyway. But yeah, I never have these tangle on me, and I don't mind actually if you cast out and when it sinks down like this and pushes away from the lead, I don't mind if it sits back on top of itself a little bit, like kind of like a coil, because that way when the fish approaches from any angle, there's sort of mobility enough that it can move off and fly up into the fish's mouth. Because you remember when quite big carp approach the lake bed, they're approaching it, tend to come down from sort of above or sideways in, and they can't get super low to the ground because of their size. So they bottom end up like this and they come in searching around, and when they suck up that hook bait, if it's already really extended out like this and they approach from that end and the lead's here, the lead's not moving, this one here has got to move. And if they suck it up and it's not flying up and all the rest of the things on the bottom do fly up into their mouth, they're very weary and they don't tend to come back. But if you have it sort of sit in a coil or, you know, around, that's why solid bags work so well, because everything's in a pile and it's got all of that room to move everywhere it can go from every angle. If the fish approaches, it's going to fly up into their mouth. It's got enough room just to sort of prick them like that. So yeah, I do like to have them sit like that. That's one of the reasons I like a soft coated and not, or uncoated, sorry, and not a coated braid. But yeah, this rig will do you bites pretty much everywhere you go, as long as you're on the fish. I'm pretty sure that this one is going to convert more sort of pickups into fish for you. Well, there we go, guys. Unfortunately, it looks like I've misplaced the last bit of film on this footage, but yeah, just a big thank you to everyone that's watched. And if you want to see me tie any other rigs, then just let me know in the comments. And I will see you guys on the next one.